I remember the exact moment when I realized my life was in danger. For weeks it had been building up and suddenly I was sitting there and it dawned on me. If I didn't take drastic measures to ensure my safety, I would lose my life. Never in a million years did I think I'd only get to live for 18 years. There was still so much I wanted to do with my life. I mean, I'd barely even kissed a boy and I hadn't even gone to college yet. This couldn't be happening. And it's not like I had the most carefree life. For one, I'd never met my mom. She died while giving birth to me, and I felt like I must be this constant reminder for my dad that I'm the reason Mom died. I know these things happen, but I couldn't help feeling responsible. So when my 18th birthday was approaching, I decided to pace carefully. Every birthday I had was bittersweet. I always had cake and presents, but at the same time, we always visited Mom's grave and took her flowers. She died so I could be born. Honestly, it's the biggest burden I'll ever carry. Turning 18 felt like a big deal because that was the age my mom died. Yep, she fell pregnant very young and her death was so tragic. I knew this birthday would be particularly difficult for my dad, so I didn't even mention it. He asked me how I wanted to celebrate and I said I was happy to just go out for dinner or something. Pretty quickly, my dad started acting kind of strange. He's always been a quiet, reserved type of guy, but this was next level. I came home from school one day and found him sitting on my bedroom floor, holding some of my old teddy bears, crying. I was so shocked. I saw my dad cry often, but this was different. He looked really sad. I went over to him to ask what was wrong and he pulled me onto the ground and he wouldn't stop hugging me. That was just the beginning. Throughout the next couple of weeks, he wouldn't leave me alone. He was so clingy. It actually got a bit much at one point when he wouldn't even let me walk to school by myself. He insisted on walking with me and he even tried to hold my hand when we were crossing the road. I pushed his hand away and said, "Dad, stop it! I'm almost 18. I'm not a kid. I can cross the road by myself." He looked taken aback after I shouted at him and he apologized and walked away. There was a lot of traffic, but I could have sworn I heard him say something like, "That's the problem. You're almost 18. I was feeling tired, so I started walking upstairs towards my room. It was so hot, so I opened my window and flopped down on my bed. I could hear my dad and my cousin outside talking, but I wasn't really paying attention. Suddenly, I heard my name and my ears perked up. "Listen, you really need to tell her. Oralee is turning 18 this week. She has a right to know. I mean, when was the last time any female in this family made it past 18? It's like a curse, Uncle James." Curse? What was my cousin talking about? What did I have a right to know? I ran downstairs as fast as I could, but my cousin was already in his car driving off. I screamed his name, but he just waved and then was gone. As I turned around, my dad was standing in the doorway. "Dad, what's going on? Is this why you've been acting so weird? Am I about to die or something?" "Oralee, no, don't be stupid. Your cousin has clearly been watching too many movies. It's just a coincidence that your mom, my sister, and your cousin all died at the same age, but what do you mean, your sister?" I was too quick for him. And that's how I found out that my dad had a sister who drowned when she was 18. I had never even heard of her before. No wonder my dad was so emotional about me turning 18. He'd lost his wife and his sister at that age. It was crazy. It felt like something out of a movie, a family curse. And then my cousin, she died last year in a car crash and she'd been 18 too. That night, I didn't sleep much. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I couldn't remember the last time a woman in our family had lived past the age of 18. How had I not thought of this before? This whole time I'd been excited to turn 18 because I'd go off to college. But how would I even make it to college? What if I died tomorrow? My mom died giving birth, my aunt died drowning, and my cousin died in a car crash. Well, I could definitely avoid swimming, and I didn't own a car, and there was no chance I was about to have a baby. But I could die just walking down the street. I was turning 18 a day later. That meant I had 24 hours to do all the things I wanted to do. But what if I died doing them? No, I couldn't even risk it. I spent the last day of being 17 curled up in bed watching movies. I didn't even want to eat in case I choked and died. My dad kept asking me to at least join him downstairs. But what if I fell down the stairs and then... No, but there was one thing I knew I couldn't skip. It was our tradition after all. Dad was watching TV and I crept behind him and went out to the garden to pick some flowers. Mom always loved tulips and we had them in every color. I came back inside and tapped Dad on the shoulder. He turned around and I thought he would cry from happiness. Come on, Dad, you didn't think I'd forgotten, did you? We drove to the cemetery and it was pitch black. We left home late, to be honest, but better late than never. We made our way across the path towards Mom's grave. It was too dark, so I ran back to the car to get Dad's flashlight. Suddenly, the ground gave way beneath me, and if it hadn't been for a nearby gravestone, which I quickly grabbed onto, I'd have fallen about 3 meters into a freshly dug hole. I got such a fright, I just started screaming. Dad came running and saw me standing an inch from the hole. Luckily, Dad had already put the tulips by Mom's grave because I wasn't about to spend a second longer than I needed to in that place. On the way home, I sat there shaking. We didn't speak a word to each other. As we pulled up into the driveway, I slammed the door and turned to Dad and said, "See? It is a curse. I could have died back there." I was shaking as I walked carefully to my room. I decided it was no longer safe out there. I couldn't die. I was too young. I locked myself in my room, and I made a promise to myself not to leave it again. I'd pretty much almost fallen into an open grave. The curse was real. Dad eventually gave up trying to get me to go anywhere. Summer vacation had arrived and I was adamant that I would not leave my room. There were dangers everywhere. I could get stung by a killer bee or slip in the shower. After weeks of not going outside, I started to feel really weak. One day, my friends came over with a picnic and tried to get me to go outside, but I refused. They ate their picnic on my bedroom floor while I sat in bed and ate some leftover soup. After they went home, I felt relieved. Who knew what bug they might have brought into my room? But that night, I started to feel really sick. I woke up and there was sweat pouring down my back. My skin felt clammy and hot, and suddenly I had to run to the bathroom. The whole time I was running there, I kept thinking, what if I fall and hurt myself? It was only when I was throwing up into the toilet that the realization washed over me. Oh my gosh, I could die from being sick. It kept getting worse, and my dad found me slumped across the bathroom floor and rushed me to the hospital. I had to take a big bucket along as I couldn't stop throwing up. The whole ride there, we were both freaking out. Dad kept apologizing, saying he was sorry, and maybe there really was a curse, which definitely didn't help the matter. We reached the hospital and Dad had to basically pick me up and drag me through the doors. That's how weak I was. Then, to make matters worse, the doctor who had saved my life when Mom died was the one who was on duty, which of course just brought a whole flood of emotions back for my dad. Could this night get any crazier? I think the nurses on duty weren't sure which of us was the sick one. Dad looked just as pale and upset as I did. After some tests, the doctor confirmed that I wasn't dying. I just had a severe case of food poisoning from the soup I'd eaten, and also a bit of malnutrition from staying indoors for so long and refusing to eat properly. You mean I'm not going to die, Doc? What about the curse? At this, the doctor started laughing. Okay, Orly, you need to get some rest, and your old man too. You're both a bit delirious, I think. After a couple of days of rest in the hospital, I was ready to go home. I'd survived. Had I beaten the curse? On the drive home, out of nowhere, Dad just burst out laughing. Orly, I think you actually cursed yourself. How ironic is that? You refused to go outside and you refused to eat the food your friends cooked, and still you got sick. It's all in our heads, I think. Let's just put this all behind us. It's all just coincidence, okay? There's no such thing as curses. And you know what? Dad was right. I'd become so fixated on keeping myself out of danger that I'd actually brought it on myself. It's like I'd drawn this bad energy towards me. Well, this is at least what I tried to convince myself with, because honestly, a small part of me still believes that I have avoided a curse rather than it not ever existing. I mean, I did kinda almost die a couple of times. Coincidence? Maybe yes, maybe not. I'm 23 years old now, and sometimes I still fear for my life. Oh, and when it comes to kids of my own, maybe I shouldn't even have any. I mean, what if there was a chance it was real and my daughter would be stuck with a stupid curse, especially after seeing how hard it was for my father to deal with it? No, thank you.
My mom wants me to get plastic surgery. Hi, my name is Rachel, and I'm just like every other girl my age, except for one thing. And, well, that's what I want to talk to you about today. I'm 16 years old and, okay, I don't really know how to put this. I'm ugly. Not like hideously ugly, but I'm no beauty queen. My mom's a beauty queen, though. Well, at least she was when she was younger. She was the beauty queen of our state, but now she just helps run the beauty pageant. And she looks wonderful for her age. She's super slim and has long, straight hair. Ever since I was a little girl, she's always tried to make me look prettier. She used to buy me expensive pink frilly dresses and tie my frizzy hair up in cute polka dot hair bows, but she still never seemed satisfied. She never registered me into the cutest baby competitions and never even let me participate in any of her beauty pageants. I mean, it's not as if I even want to take part, but she's my mom and she runs it. She could at least ask if I want to join, right? Or at least invite me to attend. For my 13th birthday, she bought me a makeup set and said I should start wearing makeup every day if I ever want to have a chance at being successful. Can you believe it? A few of the girls in my year at school are participating in the upcoming pageant, and their moms are there at every rehearsal cheering them on. My mom's there too, of course, seeing as she's in charge of it. One day, my friend Marissa asked me to come over to her place after school. As we walked out of the school gates, her mom came running over to us, telling her she'd be late for the special beauty pageant ceremony. She'd completely forgotten it was today. I told her I'd just see her at school tomorrow, but her mom insisted I come along too. I knew my mom was the guest speaker at this ceremony, and I'd offered to come along and support her, but she went really quiet when I said that, and told me I should probably just stay at home and do my homework. I didn't argue with her because she really didn't seem to want me to come. I got in the car with Marissa and her mom and decided that maybe my mom was being modest and would secretly love me to be there. As we arrived at the venue, Marissa headed backstage to join the other beauty queen contestants, and I took a seat in the front row with Marissa's mom. Before my mom was due to go on stage, she came out to check that everything was in order, and that's when she spotted me. I waved and smiled at her, but she didn't wave back. She looked upset with me. She asked me what I was doing here and why I wasn't at home. She told me to go wait in the car or I'd be in big trouble. I didn't even reply to her. It didn't seem worth the fight. I grabbed my bag and said bye to Marissa's mom before running off. Marissa's mom looked at me with tears in her eyes. An hour later, my mom climbed into the car and we drove home in silence. I went straight to my room and locked the door. I just felt so alone. My mom came to my room and I opened my door because I thought maybe she wanted to apologize. But instead, she said she'd booked me an appointment with Dr. Reynolds to see if he could fix my face, and with Dr. Smith to discuss my diet. Again, I didn't even argue. I'd just given up. It had been like this my whole life. The next day, we sat in Dr. Reynolds' office, and he looked at me in confusion. He asked my mom why on earth we were here. He looked at me and said I have one of the most beautiful faces he has ever seen, and that there's nothing that needs alterations on my face. My mom interrupted him and said she thinks I am ugly and that it's affecting my school life and my social life. When I heard her words, I ran out of Dr. Reynolds' office and burst into tears. Why was my mom so cruel? Why couldn't I have a mom like Marissa's? As I sat with my head in my hands, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I looked up and it was my mom. I wanted to hit her, I felt so upset. But then, before I could even push her away, she started crying. She told me that she could accept the fact that she is not the highlight of any show anymore, and that she let me believe I am ugly and didn't make me join her recent events because whenever I do, everyone looks at me, gives me compliments, and ignores her. She was crying more bitterly now and said I steal her thunder, and she was so insecure of losing all the attention she used to get when she was younger. Then she scooped me into her arms and hugged me tight. We both cried. She looked me in the eyes and said she is very sorry. She asked me if I could ever forgive her. Understanding that all this time she'd just been projecting her own feelings onto me and that I wasn't ugly, nor was she, made me feel a bit better. I felt sad for my mom, but I was glad she finally realized the problem and became aware of it. Leaving the hospital, my mom looked at me and said I am the most beautiful girl she knows. That sentence changed my life.